What up, fellas? For the Cap 22, main takeaways from the Warriors' 22nd week of the regular season. Y'all know the drill, so let's get on with it. The Warriors dropped a game against the Hawks, and even though the headline of that game was that it was a piss-poor defensive performance, something that stuck out to me was how badly they executed when hunting for mismatches. Trae Young is one of the smallest players in the NBA, and it just so happens that we have one of the best interior scorers in the NBA on our team in Jimmy Butler, so it would make perfect sense to create a positional advantage between Jimmy and Trae. So there was a lot of inverted plays and actions that involved Jimmy screening Trae to force a switch. The Hawks and Quinn Snyder countered this by hard hedging. Now when you have a big ball handler and you have a smaller player screening for you and his defender is hedging, there are two ways to beat that coverage. The first one is hitting the screener quickly. If Pods, Moody, or Buddy is setting a screen for Jimmy, it would make no sense for those guys to roll to the basket, especially if Trae Young is hedging. So what he needs to do is pop out into space, not roll to the basket, but far too often, they were just rolling to the basket for no reason. But another key thing that is more important is that the ball handler needs to engage the hedge, meaning Jimmy needs to attack Trae quickly to put pressure on the coverage because the hedge only lasts for about a split second. After all, they don't want to concede the switch. So if you don't go fast enough, then the advantage is gone, and a lot of the blame for it should be placed onto Jimmy for not executing this properly. Whenever they try to set a screen to get a switch for Jimmy, if Jimmy doesn't go quick and attack Trae, then that doesn't buy time for the screener to pop into space. But because we didn't execute properly, the Warriors missed out on so many chances to get the defense into rotation. If Pods is popping up top, you have created a 2-on-1 advantage on the ball. If Jimmy hits Pods at the top of the key, now it's all about decision making and winning closeouts. But they were never able to get those opportunities because of poor execution. The second way to beating that kind of coverage is attacking the hedge quickly by splitting. So if Trae Young is hedging and not allowing you to turn the corner by getting in front of you in the sideline, there's an open driving angle down the middle towards the basket. Elite ball handlers / players are able to recognize that and split the screen early. We played OKC 2 months ago where Shea gave us 50. We tried to hedge, but he's such a good on-ball creator that he was effectively splitting the hedge and getting downhill with ease. Jimmy doesn't possess that advanced ball handling to where he can exploit that the same exact way that a guy like SGA can. He was getting cut off by Trae, and he kept sluggishly spinning away from the hedge, and it was just a mess altogether. In other possessions where Jimmy achieved that switch with Trae, guys like Moody and Buddy lack that playmaking IQ to recognize that opening, or even better, recognize what the backside help is doing, because the Hawks did a good job of scram switching Trae off of Jimmy. This is where a bigger player in the backside will switch with Trae Young to prevent a mismatch. Moody and Buddy kept missing those reads, which led to empty possessions. GP2 was able to read it one time, and it led to a good flowing possession where we got a solid 3-point attempt. Overall, just bad execution on offense, and you pair it up with that sorry ass defense that they were playing. No chance were they ever going to win that game. The Raptors game was a diabolical win, and one of the main reasons why is because of the defensive coverage that Darko, the Raptors head coach, was employing. And it's a defensive coverage that I've talked about before, and it's the same coverage that Darvin Ham and the Lakers used in the 2023 playoffs against the Warriors. And the idea is that whoever is guarding Steph, that defender is top locking Steph. What that means is that he is going to get in between Steph and the screener, essentially forcing him away from the screen or the ball. But there's an issue with doing that because the trade-off is that you're now going to concede a ton of back cuts. That's essentially what you're inviting. That's how Draymond can usually slip those backdoor passes to Steph. But what teams are consistently doing is dropping the 5-man or whoever is guarding Draymond to cover the back cut. So pretty much there's a defender behind Steph and a defender in front of Steph. So they're pretty much sandwiching him. Draymond took 14 threes against the Raptors. I don't even remember the last time he took more than 10 threes a game. Now, albeit he did make enough of them to win the game, but this is not what you would want out of your offense if you're the Warriors. When they face this kind of coverage, what Steph will usually do is either shallow cut underneath the screen. So instead of using the screen and going over, because that option is not available, you have to go under the screen. But the problem with that is that you achieve nothing. You don't create any kind of advantage. This is just a way for Steph to relentlessly get the ball. The second method is that Steph will set more screens. So this is where he'll end up setting rip screens, inverted screens, because his defender is literally attached to him like glue. Most of the time, this clears a runway for a player to get downhill. The third method is actually a play that they'll run. I don't know the name for it, but if Steph gets top locked on a pin down, what will usually happen is that the ball is going to get swung to the screener, then Steph is going to direct his defender towards a gut screen. The reason why this works is because the defender top locking Steph will usually have his back facing the other basket. They're more likely to get hit by a gut screen because they can't see it. It's actually a very good counter, but the far more efficient solution is to have a spacing big. After all, that's what the defense is giving you, and in years prior, Draymond and Looney weren't floor spacers to take that kind of shot, but with QP in the mix now, he's the answer to that kind of coverage. He forces the 5-man to now have to step up and contest him at the 3-point line. If not, the defense can easily wear down Steph, and they'll force the Warriors to play a different brand of basketball, and that's what happened in the 23 playoffs. We were forced to run more pick and rolls, which is definitely not a Steve Kerr thing. The Warriors have traditionally ranked towards the bottom in pick and roll frequency. It forces Steph to be on the ball more and having to operate more as like a surgical on-ball creator, which he can do, but that's not his preference. And this isn't just something that the Raptors are doing. Plenty of teams are starting to catch on to this when they play the Warriors. I've already mentioned the Lakers, the Pistons who played us not too long ago tried this, the Sacramento Kings with Doug Christie heavily did this as well, the Grizzlies did this in the game where Steph only scored 2 points. This is going to be the base coverage that the Warriors are going to have to face in the postseason. Guaranteed. It's either this or a switch everything scheme, because the Warriors are also not a heavy ISO team, but the problem becomes the value and the playability from post, because he fills such a desperate need on offense, but he still can't defend and rebound at a respectable level to earn big minutes alongside Steph.